So, welcome to Five Big Questions. I'm Keith Morris, General Manager at Big Cork Vineyards. And before we let our guests take the stage here, or I don't know, maybe go out in the vineyard with me, I'm not sure, we're going to sit down to answer five big questions that you just won't hear anywhere else. So, I'm so excited to have Seyler with us today, the founder, percussionist, drummer for the Reagan Years, what I'll call the 30th anniversary edition of the Reagan Years. They really created the soundtrack of the 1980s, starting in 1996. This is their 30th anniversary year. And I've got to say, 30 years is a remarkable run, Si. When you started this in 1996, I think you and Karen Ellison started it together, as I recall from you telling me that. Did you think you'd still be selling out shows 30 years later?
Not at all. I mean, it was around 2010, and somebody said, "How much longer do you think you can do this, Si?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know how much leg this has got left in it. It's probably in a downturn here shortly. I'm sure that we're about to plateau."
What's
Wow.
changed the most though? I mean, from the early gigs that you did when you first started, think back to my son was born in 1997, so I can kind of picture that era, my oldest son. But what's changed about what you do or how the industry has changed really in the last 30 years?
A lot. Think about it. 1996 was around the dawn of the internet, right? So, Ask Jeeves was like the search engine. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And think about how like that whole experience of internet drew a lot of people together, shared ideas and things like that. So when we started the band, it was us doing an 80s thing on the East Coast. There was the Love Shack in Las Vegas, and there was the Breakfast Club around Miami, and we were it. We
Yeah.
were the only three bands doing what we're doing now. And I mean, now the landscape is leveled quite a bit, and there's 80s tribute bands everywhere. And I like to think that we pioneered part of that movement. Um, Social media has helped, and again, social media has diluted. So the tools and the communication that make the entertainment industry better also kind of saturate the social media, saturate the presence of genres of music and overexpose certain people and whatnot. So there's that balance that we never had to deal with in 1996.
If somebody hasn't seen you guys before, and I mean, I have to be honest, I don't know how many people in the DMV would fall into that category, but there's always some. You know what? There's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
people that haven't had a chance to see you. Do you see anything that you would say, we do this slightly differently, or this is our goal, our vision's a little different than some of the other people now that have sort of crowded into that sort of 80s recreation space?
So I think when we pioneered this thing, the idea was to be a virtual MTV program, so that you would see Flock of Seagulls, and followed by Def Leppard, followed by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Rick Springfield, so Cyndi Lauper. You'd see a variety of artists, and I think we do that better than anybody else. And we have an uncanny sound like the record, better than other bands, because we've got four singers on stage presenting the material, where many of the other bands, the same person that's singing Brian Adams is singing the Def Leppard, and there is no female to do the Cyndi Lauper,
Yeah.
or I mean, it's there's just not that variety and um, genuine recreation of the artist like we do it.
So that was always your goal, like when you were thinking about essentially being a live version of MTV and having the variety. That has to have really been difficult to, for lack of a better term, sort of cast the characters that you've surrounded yourself with, the voices you've surrounded yourself with. Is that always a challenge? I know that you've had a little bit of change with the band over the years, but is that really challenging for you to be able to find those voices?
Certainly, it very, very challenging. and that's why our set list has evolved over those years too. So I'm like, look, I might still do B-52s, and I might still do Billy Idol, and Karen still does the Cyndi Lauper and Joan Jett, but we would have never tried a heart song
Yeah.
without Rachel Harvey Jones. She can knock that song out of the ballpark, hands down, better than anybody I've seen. And then you've got Anthony Nuccio that's come in from Rock of Ages, and he's got that huge rock persona about him. So, of course, we're going to do the Def Leppard, and we're going to do the Journey, and we're going to do the Bon Jovi, because that's what he embraces. Maybe in an earlier day, we wouldn't have taken a leap to do a Skid Row song with one of the other guys. Nothing to fault them, but maybe an earlier singer was better to do a Bowie song, or better to do something else and not reach for that White Snake big note.
Well, I think that it's fascinating to me, and I think you and I've talked about this before. I grew up around the music industry before I ever got into running wineries, and so I know enough to be dangerous. And that's the thing that amazes me, is the way that you have let it take you where the voices that you've found over the years have led you, as opposed to going, nope, this is what we do, this is all we do. Like, you've
Yeah.
let it flower, and that's the cool thing. If you've never seen the Reagan Years, it always amazes me that any song, because I'm in my office a lot, I'm running around on days when you guys are here playing, and I'll pop out and I'm like, man, that sounds just like the record. And I'll come back and I'm like, man, that sounds just like the record. Like, it's amazing to me how many of those you hook me with to do that. Okay, so here's the big question number 3. My sons are 29 and 26. So one was born in 97, one's born in 2000. And there was a time in which I was like, okay, I graduated from high school in 1986. I owe it to my kids to let them experience some of the 80s. So if you were in that situation and you had one 80s song that you could introduce the decade, what song are you choosing, and why would you choose it?
Wow. I've never really thought of that.
There's
Only
no
had
wrong
one.
answer, obviously, but I mean, if you had one, you're like, okay, I got Morris's 2 sons. They're sitting down with me. I'm going to try to convince them to give them something that is a snapshot of the 80s. What would you go to?
Separate Ways by Journey is one of those songs that really appeals to like a large a large age group. It was featured in a video game. It was featured in a TV series or Netflix series, but it was on a huge album from the 80s as well. So I mean, as far as like mass appeal, that's one of them. Instrumentation, that's one of them. It's got great keyboard lick that Karen nails. Goes back to that sounds like statement that you say. She plays that keyboard lick. It's not a track. It's not something
Or
we stole from the record and flew in. It's her. It's her playing it, and great guitar solo, great vocals, great harmonies, um, cool drum break in the middle of the song, and by the chorus, everybody's fist pumping, singing along. So
I've seen it.
that's my final. Separate Ways by Journey. That's my final answer.
All right, listen, if you're watching this blog, and I know this is the inaugural version, but drop a comment and let us know, because you know what? I do think it's somewhat led by the talent that you have, because I guess for me, I could look at some of Michael Jackson's stuff and go, wow, how is wouldn't you have to talk about Billie Jean, or wouldn't you have to talk about, I could go in a lot of different directions with it. I'd love to kind of hear our viewers and our members here at Big Cork to kind of give us some feedback about what they would do if they're in that situation. But hey, if we're getting it from Cy, there's some legitimacy. I love that answer. I think that answer is great. Okay, big question number 4. 30 years on the road, an awful lot of nights, crazy weather, crazy fans, people, getting wild. And on the lawn at Big Cork, we've seen some crazy stuff over the years with all the years you've been here playing for us. Is there one memory? I know you guys did a cruise, an 80s cruise earlier this year. Like, if a fan walked up to you and said, Cy, tell us your favorite road story. What's something that's happened that people wouldn't believe or they'd think was wild? What's your go-to? What do you share?
Wow. I so I, I'm glad you're editing this, because I'm having a hard time thinking of
putting
of
you on the spot. I didn't give you these
just
questions in
one.
advance. I probably should have, but I didn't. So
Um, so I think on a positive note, we've done some shows that were just amazing. So you say the cruise, and that makes sense. So recently we did the '80s cruise, and they told us we had to do a glamtastic night, so it had to be all songs based around like hard rock things you would see on MTV, maybe Headbangers Ball segment, and it was also the day after Rachel had to disembark, so we were going to do it as a six piece with Karen, Anthony, and I doing all the vocals. Couldn't do any of the new wave stuff that I really that kind of I excel in. So no Frankie Goes to Hollywood, no Dead or Alive, no Beef It. Well, so I'll get to that. So Downtown Julie Brown, from MTV, from
yeah.
Sirius XM, is a drummer. So we brought her up on stage with us. She played drums. I went out front and sang Love Shack, and this whole ballroom of cruisers is just pandemonium. And what a great thing, because you're looking out and there's the guys from the Gary Newman band, there's the guys from Quiet Riot, there's the guys from Aldo Nova's band, there's Mark Goodman from MTV. These people are facing you. They're your audience, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. What an amazing experience. So
I love that.
that's a good one.
You know what? You painted such a great picture there for me, because the idea of being surrounded by super fans that aren't just there hanging out. If you buy tickets for an '80s cruise to go and hear '80s music, you are pre-qualified as a fan. And the thing that I could compare it to in our industry is that while I love pouring wine for our guests and our members, there is something special about getting a group of winemakers together back in our cellar or at a dinner or something like that, and everybody's saying, "Hey, bring a couple of bottles what you really want to geek out on, and like just let us taste." And I love feedback from anybody, but when it's somebody that's actually out there in the vineyards and picking the wine, picking the grapes and working on it, it means a little extra. That is a great picture size. So I love that as the fourth answer. That is a terrific story. Okay, so here's the hook for End of Summer Bash. So this is our 11th year here as a winery. You have been here for all of our End of Summer Bash events. You've done them all. Um, Somebody's thinking about buying tickets. This morning, I think we're at around 80 to 85% sold out. So there's a little bit of ticket space left. If you haven't gotten your tickets, if you're hooked already, MDTix, MDTIX.com, go there. You can get one of our last remaining tickets we have for End of Summer Bash. It always sells out. But if somebody's buying tickets for that event, or somebody's never been and is thinking about coming, can you kind of describe the experience of playing at our End of Summer Bash? I won't compare it to anybody else, but just what's it like for the fans that come in and see you guys and the other bands that perform at End of Summer Bash?
Sure. So I think the you got to start from the entrance. So you walk into Big Cork, and it's a beautiful venue, surrounded by the vineyard, and from where it is kind of on that hilltop, that big sky, above you, you're not dwarfed by landscape, that's above you. So, big sky on a field with this, large place for the bands. So the setting is great for those that like to bring tents. There's areas for them. People that like a big dance floor, there's something for them. The audio is top notch. Showtime Sound and Light comes in and provides awesome sound reinforcement and lighting. And then there's the talent. So this year we're bringing in Crash the Limo from Frederick, Maryland. They've got a great song list, two-singer band, get the male and the female element of things from the 90s to today. Then then afterwards, flashback to one of the mainstays, Groovalicious, which is this really cool three diva fronted 70s disco band.
People get up and dance with them, that's for sure.
Feather boas and big felt hats and whatnot. I mean, like so nine-piece band with a big horn section. That big full sound of all those dance favorites that you like, from Bee Gees to ABBA to anything off the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. And then then the Reagan Years finishes out the show, and if it wasn't a dance party then, it's one now. So now there's a field of people just singing, dancing, having a great time. You get to bring your own food. People make a picnic of it. People that don't get together have now made this like their meeting place for the summer. You see a lot of, because I walk the field, I walk the venue, and I see all these people that come, and they have made it a tradition now. So you say 11 years, there's people that I am sure have been there all 11 years.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, and I've talked to people that for whatever reason, somebody's wedding someplace else, they couldn't make it, and they're like, I am so disappointed that I couldn't make it for that year because this and that and other thing, somebody's getting married, and you can genuinely feel that they love the experience and they want to be there. So it's terrific to feel that vibe. And I would hope that somebody that's never been there for End of Summer Bash would snatch up one of the last of these few tickets left, because they'll be fans for life.
Well, it's a family. It's kind of its own culture. It's people that wait for it all year round to do it again. The food trucks, the sangria, which we only make a few times each year. We always it's the biggest sangria day of the year. All of our wines. It's a terrific picture again that you've painted about what the experience is like on the lawn. My staff loves being able to host you guys as the anchor of our End of Summer Bash. So listen, we're very excited. All right, now I've got to go rapid fire because our time's relatively limited. Those are the 5 questions, but this is going to be quick hitters, just some single. And I know I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't give you these in advance. I'm going to give you a couple of things. Favorite 80s movie?
Breakfast Club.
Excellent. Vinyl or cassette?
Vinyl.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Best concert you've ever attended where you didn't have to play?
Live Aid.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. You've never told me that before. I'm super jealous.
Philly. Yep.
Wow. Biggest musical influence on you personally?
My brother.
Excellent. Most underrated 80s band?
Wow. Yeah. I love one out of Canada called 8 Seconds. Look them up. They opened for Wang Chung on University of Maryland campus. I went out the next day, bought the CD. Excellent band.
That's a deep cut, and that is exactly the type of thing that I was hoping that this series would kick off with, because there's a lot of people right now that are AIing it right now for the first time. So I love that.
One more.
Yeah.
Another electronic band called The World. The album was called Break the Silence. Never heard of them.
Well,
since.
I got my work to do on both of those sides, so I got to get out and do that. In the crowd, looking around, favorite 80s hairstyle you see?
It's got to be the big wig. Like somebody's got some big spiky long hair wig. That works.
All right. So this is the final one. If you're sneaking backstage at the event, what's the most likely Big Cork wine to see hanging around backstage whenever you guys are, after the show? What do you see back there?
Hands down, it's the Russian Kiss.
I already brought the bottle up. I knew you were going to say that. I knew it was going to be Russian Kiss. So listen, I will agree with that because again, this is a wine I never made. A lot of people know this if they've met me here at the winery. I moved here from a winery for almost 20 years. I worked for in Sonoma. And Russian Kiss is only made here, and it's made from a unique set of varietals. It's a little bit sweet, it's refreshing. It is the perfect out on the lawn 80s wine. And I say that because I'm not saying in 1986 when I graduated from high school that I was drinking a lot of wine because, of course, that would have been illegal. But the types of wines that I enjoyed back in that fresh, fruity, easy when I was young and that sort of 80s style wine, I think Russian Kiss does that beautifully. But I knew you were going to say Russian Kiss, so I actually brought a bottle over with me just to kind of wrap that up. So listen,
what we need to do, you know what we need to do? We need to change the label for for that day, and it
just for
needs
into
to
summer
be
bash.
yeah, it needs to be an 80s label.
All right,
Some
I've got the pen out right
yeah,
now. I'm
Chat
making
GPT, transfer my label to 80s flair. Boom.
80s flair label for Russian Kiss. All right, this thing's paying for itself already, Si. I love everything about it. So. Listen, if you don't know the date, if you've been watching us this far and you don't know when this is all happening, so we're Saturday, we're August the 15th. It's pretty much always the middle Saturday every year. Crash the Limo, Groovalicious, and of course the Reagan Years. Gates open at 11. It goes all day long. Wine, sangria, food trucks. You can bring your own picnic. It is the biggest party in the DMV, and I'm so happy to have Cy here for our very first inaugural 5 Big Questions with Big Cork. So, Cy, thank you so much. I can't
Thank
wait
you
to
so
see you
much
in
for
August.
having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
this is going to be incredible. And hey, let's get ready to get out there. I got to get my Chat GPT going. I got to go look up Cy's
We're
unheralded
gonna
age
do it.
band.